press up front here. We got everybody? Okay, we're going to get started here in about 20 seconds.
Today, for the Occupy the World Food Prize, my name is Judy Amorites. I'm a retired teacher from Des Moines and a proud member of Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement. I helped operate a row crop and hog confinement operation for about 10 years in Story County, and I know firsthand what corporate control has done to our rural economies, our public health, and our environment. I've seen and witnessed firsthand what happens. The World Food Prize is the grand promenade of corporate control over food production that undermines the independent family farms that are capable of producing a diversity of healthy foods that can actually make it to our dinner plates. We are told in Iowa that we must feed the world, but feeding people is not a supply problem. The problem is distribution and economic inequality.
That's right.
The solution to feeding the world is to bust up big ag.
That's right.
And empower women, immigrants, and young farmers. GMO crop production requires heavy inputs of chemicals that run off into our waterways, contributing to the water pollution in Iowa and the dead zone in the Gulf Coast region. Cash crop production in Iowa floods the floors of the hog confinement operations that pollute our air, waterways, and soil. Independent family farmers in Iowa and around the world have been pushed off our traditional land, and we are now in danger of losing our traditional farming knowledge. The farmers that are left are now trapped in a system of industrial agribusiness where they have no power. We no longer own the seeds, the livestock, or the land. The corporations do.
That ain't right.
No.
Our forefathers would be horrified and ashamed. The speakers and representatives that you will be hearing from during the Occupy the World Food Prize campaign this week will lift the veil of deceit and expose the corporate agenda to consolidate and control food production around the globe.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm here with colleagues from ActionAid International, which works in 40 countries with communities to defeat poverty and injustice. I'm also here with Tim Wise, who is the author of this report. The report Rising to the Challenge, Changing Course to Feed the World in 2050. The report raises questions and illustrates that we can feed a growing population, but only if we change course away from industrial agriculture. The answer to the world's food, hunger, nutrition challenges is not GMOs. GMOs are a major symptom, perhaps the most recent symptom of a very corrupt, managed corporate agricultural system.
That's right.
Yeah.
The G8's New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition, New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition is another mechanism for corporate agribusiness, dressed up, greenwashed, whitewashed to pass for a solution to Africa's food and hunger problems. I'm here to ask you to just say no to corporate agriculture. Don't believe the hype.
That's right.
Fight and keep fighting for food sovereignty. Fight for the livelihoods of farmers. Build solidarity across borders and around the world. It really is about us versus corporate agriculture. We can't afford to lose on this.
That's right.
We must not lose on food sovereignty. And to paraphrase the late Barbara Jordan, the stakes are too high for this to be a spectator sport. Solidarity for food sovereignty. Thank you.
Well, Occupy the World Food Prize. People ask, what's that all about? 2 years ago, Occupy Wall Street hit the country. And then it activated millions of people to get into the streets.
That's right.
Why? They came out with a formula that hit a note.
That's right.
The 99% against the 1%. They told us the problem with America, the problem with the globe, is the global financial systems
That's right.
that work at Wall Street. They hit a common chord. Millions of Americans says that's right. Folks who are on the right, the left, up and down, it don't matter. Everybody knows that this country is owned by corporations.
That's right.
And we got an issue of wealth in this country, and they're beating us bad. And in Iowa, we took that idea of Wall Street occupation, and we occupied the caucuses. That kind of political parade and charades they call an election. And we discovered in Iowa that our Democratic parties, Republicans, Democrats, they're owned by the corporations. And in fact, the whole electoral process is owned by the corporations. And people knew that.
That's right. That's right.
The problem is no institution bumped it. None of the political parties embraced it because they're owned by corporations and money. None of the media embraced it because they're a corporation media. None of the educational systems in this country heard it because they're owned by the corporations. None of our church leaders heard it because they've forgotten what God intended the land for.
That's right.
Hey folks, Occupy the World Food Prize is about rebranding a food prize that is not the World Food Prize, but it's corporate food prize.
That's right.
And they own everything.
That's
Look
right.
at, when they announce the winner of this prize, they go to the State Department of the United States of America and they announce it. What's that all about? Whose government is it?
Right.
When they come to Iowa to do their prize, they go up the street. Whose name is on that house? That people's house. It's the corporate World Food Prize. And the one man in this country who can address this, who's been dealing with this issue for the last 3 decades, Jim Hightower,
right.
is here to tell us what's wrong with the World Food Prize.
Well, rather than tell you what's wrong, I think that's maybe set aside here. I want to tell you what's right about what you're doing, standing up here. I've come some several hundred miles up I-35 from Austin, Texas to this balmy day in Des Moines to stand with good people who are standing for the right cause. We've had something phenomenal take place in the last 50 years in America that's been totally destructive to the world food supply. And that is, we have had a collusion between government and between the corporate giants to do something that is almost unspeakable, and that is to strip out the culture from agriculture.
That's right.
And instead to leave us with agribusiness,
That's right.
which is something altogether different. And that has resulted in an industrialized, conglomeratized, monopolized, giantized, plasticized, heavily subsidized food system.
That's right.
That is hierarchical, it is plutocratic, and it is anti-democratic. So your fight here is an important stand against it. And it's not just the fight against GMOs, it's also the fight against factory farms. I was in Fairfield, Iowa last year, taking a stand against the CAFOs with the great JFAN organization over there. I was over in the northwest Iowa last year as well, with a group over there, a group of farmers raising the most remarkable berry I've ever seen, a pioneering new crop that's based on family farm agriculture. This movement is spreading all across the country. Farmers with restaurateurs, with chefs, with food artisans, with consumers, with environmentalists, with the majority of the people standing against this. This is a what I call the upchuck rebellion. The people are upchucking over industrialized food, but they're not just throwing up, they're building a new food economy at the local level, all across America and throughout the world. It's truly a populist revolt against that industrial model to bring food back down to earth, back down to the people themselves. Now the powers that be try to pretend that their way is the only way, and that's what they'll be saying here at the presentations tonight and tomorrow night, etc. They say you can't beat the corporations. You can't change the system. Well, as a friend of mine who's been a pioneer in the organic movement put it, those who say it can't be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. And that would be good folks like you, again, all across the country. You know, it's kind of interesting that they say that. Because in this morning's edition of the Des Moines Register, here's a 2-page spread about a local farm family that is doing exactly what we're talking about, that we want as a food economy. A group in India of about 5,000 women in some 70 different villages who are farming cooperatively, who are saving and keeping their seeds and planting their seeds themselves. They don't need Monsanto to provide the seeds for them, who are producing a cornucopia of good food in that village, doing it with sustainable practices and also marketing cooperatively over there. A local economy, not trickle down but percolate up, and it is making the difference there. So my message here is they can try to fence us out with these little things here, but they can't keep us out. Because the people are on the move on this one. So I'm just here to thank you for what you're doing. Keep it up.
People are doing it. Now we need the government policy to make that the priority rather than the corporate system the priority.